Good morning. The committee on parole is reconvening. It's 9:34. Good morning, Mr. Sheehan.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing?
A little nervous, but otherwise good.
Good. Would you please state your full name and your Department of Corrections ID?
John Anthony Sheehan, 116199.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. And let me pull up your records. Technology is working very slow this morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Sheehan, my name is Alvin Roche. To my left is Mr. Anthony Marabella, and to my right is Mrs. Wise. We will propose your panel this morning. I'm a little familiar with the process, but I'm going to explain it for those who are in the room for the first time. I will read some information into the record. Once that information is in the record, we will conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will give Warden Falgood or Warden Ambo a chance to make comments with officer observation. And we have a variety of participants and opposition in the hearing room. We have Mr. Timothy Ryan Sr., a friend of the victims, Christina Ryan, a friend of the victims, and Ms. Julia McDowell, the mother of the victim. All those individuals would like to make a statement. Mr. Nordyke, would you introduce yourself and show your name in the record as attorney for the offender?
Yes, sir. Keith Nordyke, appearing on behalf of John Sheehan. And Mr. Roche, I would note that there are two speakers that have been trying to get into the hearing since 7:15 this morning. One is retired Warden Wayne Cook, who literally called me as you were addressing me for the second or third time today. And he's been trying to log on to the standard Zoom call. And I know that also retired Warden Daryl Vanoy is going to be attempting to speak. So I'm a little concerned that the speakers have not been able to get in, particularly Warden Cook. But I am here representing Mr. Sheehan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Do we have a cook on the list?
No, sir. When I did the registration this morning, I didn't see any of those things. I don't know if they have the incorrect meeting, but I didn't see any of those things.
Would you give, Mr. Nordyke, we're gonna give you the meeting ID, and would you transfer that to Warden Cook?
If it is the same one I use, I will go ahead and just call him right this second and give it to him. Okay, I'll do that.
And when he's logged on, we will recognize him.
Thank you, sir.
We also have in support Mr. Nicholas Guillory, the brother who would like to speak. Ms. Deborah Sheehan, his wife. Donovan Underwood, stepfather. Okay. Okay, yeah. Stepsons. And we also have Mr. Carey Myers of the Louisiana Parole Project that would like to speak. So speaking for Mr. Sheehan, his attorney, his brother, and Carey Myers. After all those statements are made, before we vote, we will give you an opportunity to make a statement on your behalf, and then your attorney, Mr. Nordyke, will close out the hearing. You understand the process?
Yes, sir.
This is Sheehan, your DOC number is 116-199. You're currently 58 years old, you're a first felony offender. Your offense is second degree murder. And you were originally sentenced in 1988, but just recently, your sentence has been commuted by Governor Joe Bell Edwards. And you have a sentence of 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. And that was done on the 16th of November, 2022. Your new adjusted parole eligibility date is November 16th, 2022. Your adjusted good time date, May 23rd, 2035. And your full term date, November 17th, 2085. Is all that information correct?
Yes, sir.
Your case has been assigned to Mr. Marabella. Would you please answer Mr. Marabella's question?
Good morning, Mr. Sheehan. How are you today?
Better, sir. I'm doing well.
Thank you. You're 58 years old. How long have you been in prison?
I've been in prison for 36 years, 2 months, and 20 days.
So how old were you at the time this offense was committed?
I was 21, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about John Sheehan at 21 years old. What was your education back then?
High school diploma.
Were you working?
I was in the United States Air Force.
How long had you been in the Air Force?
Approximately 3 years when I was incarcerated, sir.
And how did your termination from the Air Force take place? How were you discharged?
I was discharged with a general discharge underneath honorable conditions.
Sure.
I failed to recognize the two participants at Louisiana State Penitentiary. Would you please give us your name and your relationship for the record?
You too.
Savaris Sutton. My relationship to John Sheehan is a longtime friend. I just recently was released after 31 years.
Thank you, sir.
Cami Matran. I am president of the Hope Foundation, and I am a longtime friend of John and his wife, Deborah Sheehan.
Thank you. I apologize for missing you when I introduced everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sheehan, how long had you and Miss Monica Sheehan been married?
We were married in May 1984, and we were married approximately a year and a half. That was a year.
Tell me how your relationship was with Monica.
We had a very turbulent relationship. I was very immature, very, what's the right word? I wouldn't think before I would act and do things. And because of my actions and the way that I carried on is the way that we had a turbulent relationship, sir.
Alcohol or drugs involved in any way?
No, sir. No, sir.
When you say because of your actions, did you have an anger issues? What sort of issues?
Yes, sir. I had.
Now that perhaps were your issues back then?
I had anger issues. I had, say, trouble with relationship issues because of the way that I was raised, and I'm not trying to blame my family. I was raised by my grandparents, which loved me very much. But I never had my father and my mother in my life. My dad was in and out of my life, more as a brother. He had actually gone to prison himself. My mother, I did not know her at all until I was 15 years old, sir.
Walk me through, if you would, the day of April the 30th of 1980. Tell me what happened that day, ultimately resulting in the shooting of Monica.
Yes, sir. That day, Monica and I had come back to Louisiana for a visit. I'd taken leave from the Air Force Base. When we got to my grandmother's house, I ultimately shot and killed my wife, and it was my responsibility. That is the reason why we are here today, because of the harmful actions that I took. And I am so sorry and remorseful for the hurt that I've caused my son, my in-laws, and my family and the community. There is nothing that I can do to change that, except to, over the years, I've tried to become a better human being.
How did you, what were you doing with a gun on that day? Were y'all arguing? Were y'all fighting?
It was more that it was, to say, spontaneous argument, me being mad, and I took her life.
Let's talk about what you've done while you've been in prison. What are some of the programs that you believe that have helped you the most? I see you've taken a lot of programs, but let's talk about which ones stand out most in your mind, the ones that perhaps have helped you the most.
The ones that's helped me the most is experiencing God and anger management. The anger management was a lot to process, to understand that every action that we have in our thoughts can have an action that will affect others. And so it's to take that action before you take action and start to correct your thoughts and see the consequences of what you're thinking about. And so that was a big part in helping me change. And if you understand prison, there was a lot of opportunity where something violent could have happened. But because of the action from the anger management, I was able to de-escalate that inside of my mind and say, that's really trivial. It doesn't matter. And walk away and do the right thing. Experiencing God was, to me, everything that's taken place in good is because of God. And it's to join him. The thing with experiencing God is to see where he's at work. And that's why I went to seminary. That's why I became a missionary, going to Raven Correctional Center. Before, when I was growing up and while I was married, it was about putting myself first. And I had to realize that it's not about me, it's about others. And putting others' lives first is what I've tried to dedicate myself to inside of here, and be a mentor to others and train them.
Let's talk a little bit about your education in faith-based ministries. What schooling have you had while you've been in prison?
I went through all the New Orleans Baptist Theological faith-based curriculum that was started to begin with. And then New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary came up here and it started a extension center where professors come from off the street. I was one of the very first students that was accepted into the program, and went through, got my associate's degree, and I got my bachelor's degree in 1999. From the school, the reason I went to school was to be able to equip myself to be able to better serve my community here in the prison, because there are a lot of hurting men, and to be able to help them change their lives in what God changed my lives. The seminary gave me the tools. The prison staff gave me the permission to be able to be an inmate minister, go to cell blocks, visit men, sit down in front of there, talk to them, help them see the anger and the things they were doing in prison were not working. And it's because of that, Secretary Staller decided to move us and ask us to volunteer to become missionaries at other prisons, because we decreased the violence inside of here and we had hope to men. And so Chaplain Cook, who is Wayne Cook, is the man that came up to interview me and asked me to go to work at Raven Correctional Center as a missionary. And it was actually recorded in statistics that because of the work we were doing, we could show that the violence and the harm, both inmate on staff and inmate on inmate, went down. Whenever you start to show men that you care about them and you're helping them see that the path they were going was destruction, there's a better path. That's what my life is about.
And how long did you do your missionary?
8 years. And then at the end of the 8 years, Warden Kane and Judge Hunter and Judge White from New Orleans were wanting to do something about recidivism. They didn't want men coming back to prison. And so they started what is now the Louisiana Workforce Reentry Program. And they brought me back from Rayburn because I had the automotive certifications. And they wanted somebody that had the automotive certifications plus the moral rehabilitation from the seminary to run the schools. And so that's why I came back in 2010 to help take over the automotive school and make that into one of the best programs inside of the state.
Tell me a little bit about your transition program. Where will you be if you get early release? Where will you live? Where will you work? What are your plans?
The first thing I'm going to do is go to the parole project. After being incarcerated for 36 years, I believe that I need to go and be with men such as Carrie and others that have got out and adjusted their lives into society. There is things that inherently are actions, waking up in the morning, we're programmed one way. Some of those things got to be broken to adjust to society. And that's where Carrie and them have done such a great job in doing that. From there, Mr. Brent LeBlanc that owns Price LeBlanc Toyota has hired me, or I say hired me. He's filled out the paperwork and he's told me as soon as I get through with the parole project to come there and we're going to work out a game plan for me to come and be a technician with them. And then from there, I'm going to work there and go to live with my wife, Deborah.
Now, some of the other programs that you've taken, victim awareness, thinking for a change. What do you think your actions have done to the family of Monica?
The actions that I have caused to the family is something that can't be put into words. The trauma that they've gone through, nobody should have to go through. And I realized that when I went through victim awareness, it wasn't just about, say, the direct victim being Monica. It was all the collateral damage that was caused, not just to my son, John, and to my mother-in-law, Marie, to my family by me being incarcerated, to the community that's having to pay for the cost of me being incarcerated. And that's why I've tried to live my life and to become a better human being and do all the things to show that I can become better than what I was.
Talk a little bit about your disciplinary record. You've had 3 write-ups in 36 years.
Yes, sir.
The last one was in 2000.
Yes, sir.
You have a low risk. Nothing you can do about this. You do have opposition, significant, adamant opposition about your release.
Yes, sir.
You've got a lot of support in your favor as well. Tell me what was the catalyst that helped you change from person you were 21 years old with all of those issues to who you are?
That was, I mean, directly my relationship with God, salvation. And I know that might sound kind of corny, but for a person that actually has a relationship with Jesus Christ and knows that he's come into their heart and changed his life, all you can do is start to look into the Bible and find answers to your life. And the answers are there. And so that is from beginning of to the end right now, it's that relationship with God that's guided me, and understand that all men should be loved, all women should be loved, and to try to help them understand that's why Christ died for us, because we were sinners and we had problems. And I needed to have somebody that could take care of me and help me become a better person.
One last question. What is your work now? What do you do now there?
Right now, I'm the lead automotive technician at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. By that, I mean that I am responsible for all the men that are inside of the automotive program, the students and the other mentors that work for me. It is to help them become the best teachers that they can to the mentees that they're teaching. The ASC, which the shirt as I'm wearing, is Automotive Service Excellence. That is the certification that we work to train our students to receive. And we have the highest pass rate in the United States, not just in Louisiana. And that's attributed to the men that work with me. It's also attributed to the students buying in and seeing that they can become better and have a chance to not sell drugs, not rob people, to be able to earn a living, take care of their families. One of my former students now is making over 100,000 a year.
Warden Calhoun, who could tell us about Mr. Sheehan?
Mr. Mayor, just in summary, John originally came to us August of '88. First mention that I can see in his record of a Class A trustee was back in 1995. He went to tractor repair, NOBTS. As far as the Bible school, his education leading up to leaving us somewhere around, it looks like '02. Coming back to us in 10 as an inmate minister, then going into the automotive. Everything that's been asked of John, he's done.
Thank you, Warden. I appreciate your comments. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. I just want to acknowledge that Mr. Wayne Cook, a retired warden, is long gone, and you will be given a chance to make a statement. Ms. Wise, any question? Mr. Sheehan, I have no questions, so we're gonna start with your supporters. With Mr. Nicholas Gilroy, come up to the podium, and you have 3 minutes to make a statement.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Give us your name and your relationship to the offender.
Yes, sir. Name is Nicholas Gilroy. I'm the defendant's brother. Sir. I just want to start by telling you who I am. Nicholas Gilroy. I grew up in the same community as John. From there, I graduated high school, from the United States Marine Corps, stayed in the Marine Corps, decorated veteran from the Marine Corps, an Iraqi war veteran. Came home, became state police officer with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife Fisheries, earned the rank of sergeant, did that for 11 years, and then was recruited in 2018 to the United States Secret Service, and I'm currently a special agent for the Secret Service. Last time I was on screen today, I'm here in front of you talking. And the reason I tell you about who I am isn't, for me. It's actually for that man right there. Because everything I've ever done in my life, he's helped me do. If I needed a major decision, instead of going to college, going to the Marine Corps, instead of staying in the Marines, coming home, it was a big decision. Big decision leaving after 11 years to go to the United States Secret Service. Every decision ever made, I drove the thing, sat down, spoke to that man, right? That man is more of a father. We have the same father, and as you heard what we talked about, he is more of a father than anything I've ever been. Even though he was incarcerated, I talked to him once, twice, 3 times a week. Went to see him twice, 3 times a month. I'm there at every single room here. Sitting down, talking with him, he gave me the advice I needed to move on with my life, become the man I am today, and I'm a very successful man today. And that's why I tell you who I am. Now let's focus more towards him. He focused his entire life in the penitentiary to help other people. First, he had to help himself, which he's done. Once he helped himself, turned it and started helping everybody else. And with the automotive program, the reentry program, ministry, everything he's ever done is dedicated his life. And if he's granted today and he gets out, I'm returning the favor to him. I will be there every step of the way. I will mentor him going out. It's time to change technology, housing, markets, and individuals, location. That's where I come into play. And I have a 9-month-old daughter. I want him to be part of her life. That's kind of where we're going towards him, you know, as being there for me. Now it's my turn to be there for him. I really appreciate you listening.
And Mr. Gilroy, thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project.
Good morning, Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project here to let this board know this morning that John Sheehan is a client of Parole Project. John has been a client of Parole Project for prior to, through his clemency hearing, through this process. We believe in John wholeheartedly. 21-year-old John was a taker. Today, and for the last few decades, John is a giver. Recognizing that that's what he needs to do. He needs to do it for himself. He needs to do it for the people he took from. He needs to do it for the community. We are so happy to be able to bring John into our program. Should John get granted today, not only we will help him through his transition after nearly 36 years. The world is so different from the one he left. We know that John will actually be an asset to other clients in our program. So we just asked this board today, I could speak for an hour on John's accomplishments. It's unnecessary, I think, and today you've heard it, but I just asked this board, based on everything you have seen and heard, that you see John as the man he is today. So much more than the worst thing he ever did. So much more than the man who took. He is a giver, and we just asked this board to grant his parole today.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We'd like to hear from retired Warden Wayne Cook. Warden Cook. You're muted.
Good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. I met John about the year 2002. I went to Rayburn as the chaplain, and John had recently graduated from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary Extension in Angola, and they were going to be sending out some of the inmates as missionaries. And so I got permission from my warden. I went over and interviewed John, was really impressed with him. But also, John had the highest recommendation of any of the other inmate chaplains that were going to different prisons. And so just a couple months later, John came to our prison, and he had his bachelor's degree. And by the way, I did some research when I became a warden, and found out that the recidivism rate for somebody with a bachelor's degree is reduced from 50% to about 5%. So there seems to be very little risk of John getting out and getting in trouble again. John worked very closely with me for 8 years. In fact, he had an office inside of my office, and he was a tremendous help. When I went to Rayburn, I was over both education and chaplaincy. And we started a number of programs, and John was especially of help in the religious programming, both in keeping track of the statistics on the offenders, as well as having a really good relationship with our volunteers. By the time I left, we had about 3,000 volunteers, 3,500 volunteers that came in at least one time every year, some of them every week. And John cultivated those relationships and helped me to start a number of the religious programs that we started. Also, he was instrumental in helping to set up the faith and character-based dorm at Rayburn, and he lived on the dorm and was a great influence. John had a unique ability, and that is he had a great relationship with both offenders as well as the officers. And the offenders would often come and ask him for help in different areas. And I was pleased that there was never even a hint that he used that as a hustle to gain money or any other favors. But he also had the respect of the officers, and they would often come to John to ask what was going on to avoid any kind of trouble that might be developing in one of the dorms. When Hurricane Katrina hit, the head warden actually made John a temporary trustee. And that's because we had no contact with the outside world. John was able to go into the front in one of the rooms, record the television programs of the news, and take that back to the dorm so that they could at least have some information about what was going on, particularly in New Orleans. I was really pleased to be able to work with John. The only difficulty that I had was when he decided finally after 8 years to go back to Angola, and he had fulfilled his term while at Rayburn. I really believe that John is one of the best candidates for a role of any of the offenders that I've talked about over the years.
Thank you, Warden.
Okay.
Now, we're going to ask Mr. Timothy Ryan Sr. to come up to the podium. Mr. Ryan, would you please state your name and your connection with this case?
Name is Timothy Ryan Sr. I am a friend of the victim, friend of the deceased victim. Also, Falls Parish Sheriff's Office, Chief of Detectives. Been in law enforcement all my life, law enforcement corrections from 84 until now. In the corrections that I ain't involved with. I retired from the state police. I was a homicide investigator, detective, users. Crime scene investigator, and evidence working. That's my experience. Yeah, the other questions?
Oh, no, just give us your statement.
Okay. Couple of things. My years of experience in dealing with offenders on the correction side and on the law enforcement public safety side. Nothing I want to say here, I want to offend or insult any of the criminal justice professionals that have spoken before me. Okay. So that's not my intention here. Tell you my experience, my views, is that I've seen a trend in that period of time where the victim is not getting justice. The pendulum is swinging and it's swung way away from the victim. And they're not getting any justice. The promises made are not being kept. When the people decide a case and that case has not been overturned by any court, from what I understand, it's still standing. It's never been overturned. When the people decided a case and a sentence was made, these victims, and they expect that this promise be kept, that my daughter's life is gone and now his life will be separated from society for the rest of his life without any parole or anything like it was originally intended to be. And the victims just aren't getting any justice. And it's taken away power from people that have decided this case. It's leaving the victim, it's re-victimizing the victim all over. You know, they should be able to say, this is done, can never harm anyone again. He is going to be punished for life because my daughter's life was taken short, taken away, gone. And it appears to me, in listening to him, that he's attempted to deceive you as well by telling you that this was just a spontaneous thing that happened and wasn't the facts that showed that it was a calculated, pre-thought out act that he did. Okay, including getting insurance policies, forging those, and thinking things out ahead of time. And of course, it'd be much better to commit a crime like this in a rural Boyles parish where training and law enforcement expertise is a lot lower than on an Air Force base with the FBI, and everybody would be in on it and be on it like that. So this was a thought out thing. It's obvious to me, in the case of facts of the case. And it appears that he's still trying to deceive you guys into thinking that it's spontaneous. That's happened real quickly. So, an anger thing real quick while she was sitting on the floor playing games. The next thing I'd like to say on this is deterrence. The thing that I've learned about deterrence through experience and through my education, associate's degree in criminal justice. One thing that they brought up a lot is that deterrence is only effective if these consequences are swift and sure. Now we know due process, things aren't swift anymore. Okay, they drag on for a long time. But at least if we make sure the sure part is held, then you still have deterrence. And I think if we look nationwide and in our own state, some of the crimes that are being committed now, the violence is up and growing because there is no consequences, because promises made aren't kept. There's a back door, there's a way out, a back door on that the public safety.
Officer Ryan, I'm gonna give you 30 seconds to go.
Okay, all right. Next thing is, for a convicted murderer, I don't think education is relevant. Might be useful over there in Angola in saving the taxpayers some dollar on working on stuff. And his prison ministry might actually save some people like burglars, people that did nonviolent, didn't murder someone, to help them reintroduce into society and be productive. He might be doing a very good job over there and might be very needed over there. And I think it'd be a good place for him because he is a convicted murderer. And there's a difference between killing and murder. And that's what he did.
Thank you, Officer Ryan. Next, we would like to hear from Ms. Tina Wright. Ms. Ryan, you have 3 minutes. Would you please introduce yourself and your relationship?
My name is Tina Ryan. I was best friend with Monica, who's actually coming to our wedding in this house. Anyway, I'm one of Monica's best friends. My life changed forever on April 30th, 1986, 3 days before my wedding. For the past 36 years, I celebrate my anniversary by first apologizing to Monica for not being a better friend. I ask the same question to myself every year. Why did I ask you, baby, to come to my wedding? The dreams of having children, raising children as best friends, were also murdered that day. Every milestone that any friendship into an old age could ever be had was murdered that day. Our boys are 3 years apart in age, and to this day, they've never met. The last time I held Monica's baby, he was only an infant. Since her savage murder, my family are my only friends. The reality of Anthony free from behind bars is a frightening, ongoing nightmare. Anthony's release would be an every hour nightmare, especially if he resides in Long Carrollton, where I still live. The chance of seeing him in a grocery store, doctor's office, or on the street is just too far for me to imagine. The slightest thought of this scenario makes me want to vomit. Monica's son and granddaughter have fled the state of Louisiana in fear of Anthony's release. The fear is so great that Monica's son, Anthony's son, is changing his name once again and cannot be here today. I understand Anthony is a minister, supposedly a saved man. As a Christian, I really hope that is true for his own soul. I pray Anthony honors his son's prayer not to be found or seek out his granddaughter. I ask God and you for Anthony's parole to be denied. He may continue to minister and save souls from inside the prison walls of Angola. If paroled, I pray the United States Air Force will be awaiting him. Again, a reminder, if paroled and murders again, blood will be on the hands of the governor and you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Now we hear from Ms. Julia McDowell. Ms. McDowell, just stand up and turn around at your seat and give us an introduction, and we know you will mother.
Child, only child,
You want to speak up a little so the mic can catch you.
my only child, and she was murdered in cold blood by the prisoner John Anthony Sheehan, and she was murdered on April 30th, 1986, and she was only 19 years old. I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm depressed, I'm furious, I'm devastated, I'm disgusted and sad. This man who was twice convicted of second-degree murder, sentenced to life without pardon or parole, may possibly be released because of all of his many accomplishments and degrees he has obtained while incarcerated for the murder of my child. My daughter got her life taken away from her forever. He took away her chances to ever accomplish anything. She can never accomplish being a mother to her son or a grandmother to her grandchildren. The only certificate she ever got was the death certificate. She got her life sentence forever and can never come back to ask for her life back. He not only took her life away, he also took mine and my grandson's life away forever. But yet he may get his life back because of his accomplishments, no matter that he committed second-degree murder. That doesn't count him. Where's the justice? This is the man that blew kisses at me at the trial of my daughter every time I looked up at him. This man and his family has threatened my family and grandson for years. Derek, it doesn't go by John. Derek was only 8 years old and playing on the floor next to my daughter when his mother was shot in cold blood. My late husband and I adopted him and raised him for my daughter, and I consider him my son. The prisoner sent letters to Derek by people outside of the prison, mainly his wife, that he married in prison, the one he was cheating on my daughter with before he killed her, the one he brought to the funeral home. He was making out with her in a car parked right outside the funeral home while my daughter's body lay inside. The letters devastated my son so much to the point that it caused him to have panic attacks and still does to this day. He's 37 years old. In these letters, he told Derek that he didn't know why Derek hated him because he'd never done anything to him. He also told Derek that he knew everything he did and everywhere he went because he was having him followed and he burned the letters and showed them to us. But remember, at this time, he was a minister when he wrote these letters to Derek. We had to put Derek in counseling for many years to try to help him deal with this. Derek moved out of Louisiana when we were told about the pardon hearing in September 2022 because he did not and does not want Sheehan around him or his family if he gets out. At the pardon board hearing, when asked what his plans were, if he was to get out, Sheehan stated that he had a job at Price of Guantanamo in that movie. Now all of a sudden, since Derek moved to another state, Sheehan's considering changing his residency to that state. Derek wants absolutely nothing at all to do with this prison. He and I are both going to take a restraint against him if he is released. I'm pleading with the board to deny his request for parole and I'm asking that if he is released, that he not be allowed to live or work anywhere near me or Derek. And he not be allowed to move out of the state. I also request that he wear an ankle monitor for at least half of this supervision. And I ask that he has no contact with me or any of my family, Derek or any of his family. For justice for my child. This is your child. How would you act? I'm asking for justice for my. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Mr. Sheehan, would you like to make a brief statement before Mr. Nordyke closes the hearing?
Yes, sir. To the board and to all the citizens, I am deeply remorseful for the actions that caused us to be here today. It's because of my actions 30-something years ago that we are here. And I can never undo that. And I pray for the victims that I have caused and have tried to live a life of humility and repentance for the hurt that I've caused and do everything that I can to become a better human being. I thank you for the opportunity to come before you today.
Thank you, Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Nordyke?
Thank you, sir. After almost 4.5 decades as a trial lawyer, the urge to rebut some of the conversation is overwhelming, but I'm going to resist. And I'm going to try to address solely the attributes that have appeared here today. First, I want to say at the pardon hearing in this matter, and I know Mr. Mirabella and you, Mr. Roche, will remember, Ms. Wise was not there. One of the other members of the board who was inquiring actually sort of spoke rhetorically, and she said, "If not you, who?" That struck home. And what Judge Jackson meant by that is, of all of the people that she had sat in judgment of on the pardon board, and on parole, I guess also, if not John Sheehan, with the accomplishments that he has, with the rehabilitation that he has not just shown but lived, who else could possibly be meritorious? Who else could possibly be there? And I want to look at just a couple of things, and then I'm going to shut up. It's time for a vote. And that is, let's talk first about remorse. I think John has shown remorse in a very, very dramatic way, in a very good way. I've known John since his Rayburn days. Warden Cook is very persuasive. He had me driving over there every Saturday for a year or two teaching courses. And I've known John for a long time because of that. And I've known John at Angola for a long time. What you see is what you get. I've never seen anything but the humble, remorseful John Sheehan. Second, he's got a long-term plan and a short-term plan. He's going to go to the Parole Project, who has a remarkable track record of making people re-enter in a calm, good way, without a lot of hoopla. And they can do it. They can do it well, and they can do it with John. And finally, he's got a long-term plan with a job at Price LeBon. That says volumes. He's got a job waiting for him, earning a good living before he ever sets foot out of the front gate. One of the things this board looks for is how much somebody has given back. And John Sheehan has given back as much, if not more, than anybody. Unless you've been around Angola, it's hard to understand what trustee status means and how much it means. John Sheehan gave it up for 8 years to go to Rayburn. He couldn't be a trustee at Rayburn except for that one incident during Katrina. Because of the rules of satellite prisons, he couldn't be a trustee. He gave up that status, those privileges, to go do good works at Rayburn. If you know where John lives today, he doesn't live in the trustee dorm. He lives in the mentee dorm, the mentor dorm. He lives with those guys that he is mentoring and those guys that he is teaching. So he is not only teaching them academically and vocationally, he's teaching them morally. He lives what he talks about. I'm going to ask that John be released on parole. It may be appropriate that that he not be allowed to go into Avoyles Parish, and that would certainly be understandable. But I think what you see here is a man that is ready to go back into society after 36 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nordyke. Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Marabella?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who's been here today for their input, especially to the family of Monica. Can't imagine pain and grief that you suffer each time you have to relive the crime that occurred. It was a horrible one. You lost something that never can be returned. All crimes we see and victims suffer. And that's a factor that we take into account as part of our responsibility in making a determination here. We have a specific role and we have a certain set of duties. Everybody in the criminal justice system has duties. Law enforcement has their obligation and responsibility. The district attorney has their obligation and responsibility. The judge and the jury have their responsibility, and the legislature has a responsibility in setting the ground rules for what we do here. And we have rules and regulations and responsibilities that we need to follow. And our responsibility is not only to look at John Sheehan as the 21-year-old who committed this horrible crime, but to look at John Sheehan as a 58-year-old inmate and what, if anything, he's accomplished while he's been in prison. I did sit on his pardon application. I've reviewed his record. I've seen all of the accomplishments he's done. He's classified as risk. There's no question he's made exemplary service to others while he's been in prison. He's taken good programs. He's got an excellent transition program. His disciplinary record is excellent. Comments from the various wardens is all heard of. All of the people he has. The opposition is clear, and I see it, and I feel for it. I've watched his cousin Michelle Juneau giving her video statement. And I will say this, and I've said this on more than one occasion. If a vote to keep him in prison would in any way bring back Monica, I would vote in a second. But that's impossible. That's not something. My vote today would be to grant his parole to the Louisiana Parole Project. Follow any recommendations they have. I know they do, but I would want to make sure they give him substance abuse evaluation and mental health evaluation. Those in special condition that he have no contact whatsoever with the family of the victim in this case in England. That would be my vote, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Mrs. Wise.
This is a horrible. I can't imagine. I'm the mother of one daughter, so I can't imagine. But I do want you to know that the victims are in the process. You're not forgotten. You're not, but laws change. The promise was made, but the laws changed. We are a nation of laws. And I don't feel like my vote to Grant is giving him anything. He earned it. He earned it long before there was even thought that you could get out. And that's what's meaningful to me. But I do want to caution you, Mrs. Sheehan, there are some things you can't go back and do, and you got to be okay with that. In terms of your son, I know you created a lot of new sons with your mentoring, and your son may be something that you have to give him space and respect what he wants. And that's probably gonna be your thorn in your side, as Paul had. It may be, I don't know, but you have to accept that you can. I concur based on the things that's already been said, but I do order a special condition of electronic monitoring for a period of time being appropriate by probation and parole. And that you cannot leave, you cannot transfer out of state for the period of supervision. And of course, no contact with the victims and don't go anywhere near your boys parish. That is my vote.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mr. Sheehan, this is a very, very difficult for me personally. I am the victim's advocate. And I tend towards being towards the victim. I see the pain. I see the anguish. I see the mental, physical, and emotional effects this crime still has on the mother of the victim. My estimation, you are fully rehabilitated. I don't think you are a danger to society any longer. As I say many times sitting in this seat, there's 3 reasons for incarceration. Isolation, because of negative behavior. Rehabilitation and retribution. You have served almost 36, 37 years for your crime. By the actions that you exhibited at the Louisiana State Penitentiary and Rayburn shows that you are very compassionate about helping others. I think 36 or 37 years is sufficient. You have proven yourself to be a productive member of Louisiana State Penitentiary, and I'm almost sure that you're going to be a productive citizen in the state of Louisiana, in the nation. Therefore, grant your early release, because I think you fulfill the 3 reasons for incarceration: isolation, rehabilitation, and retribution. Now, these conditions I'm going to review should be strictly adhered to. The first condition is that you should have a curfew from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. If for any reasons, work, church, or any other valid reason, you need to be out after 9 o'clock, you must get that approved by your parole officer before being out after 9 o'clock. You must have no contact with any member of the victim's family, including Ms. McDowell's grandson, which he calls her son now. Any contact with this individual has to be first initiated by the individual and approved by your parole officer. You should make no contact on your own with your son. You are prohibited from entering the boundaries of a borough's parish. And you should get a mental health, a substance abuse evaluation. Anything else?
Electronic monitoring for a period of time and hopefully let it heal.
And your parole officer is ordered to get electronic monitors, and the duration of that monitoring is left up to your parole officer. You understand?
No transfer out of state or to Board's parish.
No transfer to out of state. That goes along with the restriction that you should not enter a Ball's parish, and you're never to apply for a out of state transfer unless it's approved by this committee on parole. You understand the conditions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sheehan, you received 3 votes. Grant your early release. Your early release has been granted. Good luck.
Thank you.